Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Welcome to another edition of Rewind-A-Dynamite, which I'm going to announce. This is where it all began, and I can officially state that Rewind-A-Dynamite will never take place from the United Center in Chicago. Hello, Wai.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
I don't think it will. I don't think we'll ever do this show at the United Center. Do you think?
I think it's a pretty safe bet we won't. Yeah. It's not 0%. I think anything's possible. But it's close to zero.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it would be very, very small chance that ever happens. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, not bad. I'm good. How about you?
Okay. Fine. The same exact straight line since Monday.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I'll take it. Not
better,
not worse. Just good, consistent. That's fine. You shoot for your sevens. That's a good day.
Better than a downward slope.
Yeah. That's very true. I'll let you know if I hit a downward slope. I might this weekend with all this wrestling that's coming up. I might hit a downward slope by the time we're recovering on Monday.
Well, you got to pace yourself. Do your best. Get your recovery in.
What are you most looking forward to this weekend?
For me, it's Double or Nothing. It's the biggest show of the weekend, in my opinion. Like you're just talking about shows or particular matches.
Just in general. Do you imagine, like, how little do you think the attention, because I don't think it will be zero, but what do you expect the response to Battleground to be on Sunday now that we are going into this weekend and this is directly head to head between the two? And there will be people watching Battleground, but I think that this is one where, we don't get like some scorecard at the end of this. It's not like buys are going to be reported when you have a streaming event versus a pay-per-view. But what we do have to work on are, Google Trends and just anecdotal evidence online of people that are following the shows. And it would seem that I would say the large amount of the attention is going to be on Double or Nothing Sunday night.
Certainly I think for me, I think for anybody listening to this podcast right now, for anybody that might be even on my timeline, I think most of us will be paying attention to AEW and Double or Nothing. That's sort of like your, for lack of a better word, sort of like your majors. Whereas NXT is still very much presented as sort of a minor league, promotion. That might attract some of the attention of people that are just kind of flipping through and wanting to watch some professional wrestling on Peacock. But for the most part, I don't see it putting that much of a dent. I don't see anything on the Battleground card being deserving of, I think, that much more immediate attention as, what is available on Double or Nothing.
In 2024, will there be one Sunday or Saturday night where it will be a big WWE show and a big AEW show that go head to head?
Yes.
Not the same day, like directly head to head.
So are you speaking of Collision or you mean a pay-per-view?
No. I'm talking about a pay-per-view from AEW against a premium live event from WWE. Putting Collision aside, because we know we'll get those.
Right. Okay. Also on a Sunday then, head to head.
Yeah, I guess depending on what AEW's Saturday night pay-per-view schedule looks like next year, if there are none, if they just completely move to Sundays at this point. Let's throw it out, sure, like a Sunday. Like would AEW put a pay-per-view on the same night as a WWE premium live event? Would we see that in 2024?
I don't know if it would necessarily be AEW's decision to go head to head, but I mean, could a WWE more likely, do the counter programming like they have right now with Battleground? It's possible. I guess I just don't necessarily know what either company would benefit from.
I don't think it would be a good idea, especially not for AEW. I think that would be, I don't even know what your bragging rights would be coming out of it. It would be, I can't dismiss that we get at least one of those types of head-to-head battles at some point in 2024, unless there is some
reason.
Game, though,
It's not like you're trying to stamp out this, burgeoning act that, it might be attracting some attention, some momentum, but AEW is already pretty firmly established at this point. And so what's a one-off competitive show from WWE really going to
why
present?
is this show happening on Sunday? I mean, this is
great question. I don't know.
This kind of stuff is not going to stop. There's still going to be that
you put NXT up against AEW, they always have the excuse, even if they lose, of being able to say, well, it's just our developmental league. We didn't really lose. I think a main roster WWE show going up against AEW, I feel like WWE has a lot more to lose.
I think it's difficult because you are essentially like, if we had Night of Champions head to head with Double or Nothing, that would hurt Double or Nothing. I think that would really hurt Double or Nothing, where you have for Peacock subscribers, like a fraction of the cost against Double or Nothing.
It would hurt. I think it would hurt Night of Champions.
It would hurt both, but I think that the pay-per-view is like, certainly whatever Double or Nothing is going to do on Sunday night, it would be a bigger chunk taken out of it with an alternative that was airing head to head with it. That is on Peacock. That is the cheaper option. That is a major WWE show, which Night of Champions is. Battleground.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate because I think they've done a really good job building up the main event. And you're right, it's not as though they're losing anything on this, but it is certainly going to be the secondary show on Sunday night. And I'm just curious, like, if there will be any talk of this show or if it's going to be a total afterthought among people, because you're going to have a 4+ hour event that's going to probably have the lion's share of attention Sunday.
I'm more curious to see like how AEW will program a collision up against, a WWE PLE that's going to happen every single month. Do they try to do something special, or do they just kind of throw up the flag and say, hey, like, we're probably not going to, attract significant attention away from a WWE PLE?
I guess the first example we will get is not Money in the Bank, because remember, Money in the Bank is airing live in prime time in London, and therefore is an afternoon show. So the first test will be SummerSlam. That is on a Saturday. And if you remember, not just Collision, but also that Nate Diaz Jake Paul fight is airing that night. So that's going to be an exceptionally busy night where Collision will be. I mean, I don't think that Nate Diaz and Jake Paul would be fighting before 10 p.m. Eastern time, but that is another thing that's going on that night, along with SummerSlam. So August 5th would be the first time that we will see, does AEW build that to be kind of like a 4-week build to, that is like our big special for Collision, that you promote something gigantic over several weeks to counter. Like, what kind of a program do you expect going against a very big show in SummerSlam?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we have lots of news to get into. I want to mention, as we are getting closer, we are not going to be counter-programming the Forbidden Door on June the 25th. Instead, we will be going earlier with a big Forbidden Pour event taking place at Real Sports in downtown Toronto. Tickets have been moving very nicely, and we appreciate all those that have picked up tickets. Still a limited amount left. And if you are in Toronto that weekend, do come down to Real Sports, 15 York Street, right across the street from the Scotiabank Arena, the site of Forbidden Door. Doors for us open at 3 p.m., and that will feature a Q&A podcast with myself and Wai and many others of the post-wrestling family that will be live at Real Sports. And then go watch the pay-per-view, and afterwards walk right back across the street for the after party, because your ticket gets you back into Real Sports, and we will be going all night long into the early hours. Wai has said he is going to stay up all night Sunday night.
I did not say that.
Oh, you didn't. Oops, I misheard.
Yeah, I think you may have said that you wanted us to stay up and close the event at the bar, right?
It would be fun to do our pay-per-view review at 5 a.m. as we walk home.
I'm down for it. Yeah, those are my usual hours, but it might be tough.
Let's go down the street from Real Sports. Let's jump on the CN Tower steps, warm us up. We'll do it as we go up the stairs. How about that?
Great idea.
No, awful idea. But that is all happening on June 25th. Postwrestling.com/live for your tickets. $30 gets you access before and after Forbidden Door. So you can come in and share all your hopes and dreams of what this pay-per-view presents, and then afterwards you can come back and you'll either be really happy or really upset. I don't know which.
You could sing your heart out in karaoke. Maybe win some prizes. A lot of great prizes we got lined up too through our trivia and karaoke and all manner of things. Just a whole day with post wrestling and AEW for Forbidden Door. So join us, postwrestling.com/live.
We'll jump into the news items and we will be discussing the big location of Collision. But up first, this was a passing earlier this week that I just want to make mention of. Peggy Lee Leather, who is a name I don't know how many people are familiar with, but she was sort of a journeywoman wrestler that started off in 1980, and she wrestled for the WWF for several years up until 1985. And this was sort of one of their, I guess, first real they went in these waves of promoting women's wrestling, and this was one of them. In the early 80s, when they did introduce the first time that they introduced the women's tag titles, she teamed with various performers, including Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai, Vivian St. John, and wrapped up there in about 1985. She was trained by Moolah and Joyce Grable. And then she just went to a lot of different territories. She went to Florida. She had stints in Stampede, went over to Japan for All Japan Women and JWP, had a few shots with WCW, a couple of one-offs, and then went to the AWA. And there she took part in Super Clash 3, which was a legendary pay-per-view, if you can put legendary in quotation marks, and participated in a street fight lingerie battle royal. Have you ever seen this match, Way? This was not proposed.
Don't think so.
Maybe this could have been the challenge for Orange Cassidy. A lingerie street fight battle royal.
I don't think I reviewed this one with you.
No,
was
you did
the one
not.
You did with Arda?
This was one I did with Arda. Yes. I said you can pick any event you want because Way's gone, and he chose Super Clash 3, and it was it was super, and it featured that match on it. And then she was part of the revival of Women of Wrestling. This was one of many revivals in 2000, which, much like the current Women of Wrestling that airs, like a great syndication package. I mean, this was a very accessible show, and she traded in the name Peggy Lee Leather, and she became Thug. And this also included another memorable pay-per-view she was a part of, and that was WoW Unleashed in February of 2001, a god-awful show. And she wrestled on that show against Selena Majors in a steel cage match, and then came back. She wrestled her last match on another WoW endeavor in 2013. That was her last match. And Slam Wrestling, they were the first ones to report on her passing. Greg Oliver has a story on her as well. So rest in peace to Peggy Lee Leather, who died at the age of 64 earlier this week. It is conference season, and Nick Khan is hitting the circuit, going out, and the latest one, JP Morgan, again, no spaces in that, the JP Morgan TMT conference. They're not big on separating letters, names, but we were here to check on the latest from Nick Khan. And as always, he had plenty to talk about, and he is selling some television programs. So one of the questions, we had been led to believe that both Raw and SmackDown had 30-day exclusive negotiating windows, and that the negotiating windows began right around WrestleMania time. So he was asked about these negotiating windows. So here is Nick Khan giving a bit of a lengthy answer on how the negotiations are going for Raw and SmackDown, and who is able to make their proposals known to WWE.
We're just out of the exclusive window with Fox. We're still in the window with NBCU. Conversations with both have gone phenomenally well. What we're trying to balance here is getting the maximum value for what we consider these media rights to be. 5 years ago, and keep in mind, past is the past, as everybody knows, and these numbers are public, there was almost a 4x jump up in terms of the U.S. media rights. We're certainly not expecting anything like that here, but we're expecting something great. We think our product has over-delivered on USA. If you look at it, we don't have the ratings yet from last night, but we go up against all 18 weeks of the NFL regular season in a world where there's legalized gambling proliferation, where Disney has a better Monday Night Football package than it has previously, in addition to getting a wild card Monday night game, which this year was, if I'm recalling it correctly, Tampa Bay and Tom Brady against the Dallas Cowboys. So that was the top game of the week. We go up against all of that, plus the college football national championship, plus the college basketball national championship, and we're doing about a 0.6 in the 18 to 49 demo on USA consistently. If you look at the ratings on USA, that's 3x the number 2 show there. So considering the high sub fees that USA continues to get, which they deserve, we think WWE is a big part of that. In terms of Fox, if you look at their pivot post the Disney transaction into live and into sports, we think that we fit in quite well there. And we'll see if there's more to build with these two entities. At the same time, we're always in touch with all of the buyers in the marketplace about what they're looking for. If you look at the NBA situation, my belief is the NBA are going to split the rights, which are now split 2 ways between Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney, that they could split them 4 to 5 ways. And we think that's good for everybody. So we followed the NBA's playbook 5 years ago in wanting to not have one exclusive partner for Raw and SmackDown and to split them again 2 ways. And now we're looking at the marketplace in its totality and thinking there might be more options than even that.
So a bit of a longer answer there. First of all, I do like some of the evolution we're getting in the Nick Khan photos for different stories. There's not too many photos of him out there. A lot have been left to the sit down he did with Ariel Helwani a few years ago. But that one that we had on the site, I really like this one because this was when he was interviewed by Colin Cowherd, and we've got his barbecue set up in the background. So
this is his home, we know.
I think this is Colin Cow. I don't know where this was, to be quite honest. This was when he was interviewed
by
the
grill.
Body. It was look at that thing. I mean, yeah.
Look at the number of dials on this thing. Yes,
I know. Yeah, I wonder what the X increase was on the previous barbecue. What was the escalation rate? First of all, I think Nick Khan has probably given that speech many, many times privately over the last 2 months that he was given publicly there. But interesting to hear him state, number one, his "we think" is usually "I know." So when he says he thinks that the NBA rights could be going 4 or 5 ways, the man is not just throwing out guesses with something like that. But interesting to hear him state that, number one, they like the idea of Raw and SmackDown going separate ways. So that would certainly caution you against the idea of NBC Universal taking all of the programming inside. You could distribute it elsewhere, but it seems not only do they look at Raw and SmackDown being separate, but with their programming, like even more than that, which I don't know how that would work out if you're talking about NXT, if you're talking about new programming. Maybe Nick Khan's Presents Lucha Libre is getting a look from other broadcasters that are out there. But in terms of the windows, so with Raw, they are still in the exclusive negotiating window. Fox and SmackDown, they are not. So you can see why they are, sort of getting more aggressive with SmackDown, and talks are going phenomenal, but we couldn't come to an agreement during this exclusive negotiating window. So I don't know what phenomenal means. To me, phenomenal would be like, hey, this is what we want to offer you. That's amazing. That's exactly what we want. That would be phenomenal. We're not spending all this time talking about it, but it's so phenomenal. We're going to take other offers from other people. It's like, you proposed to me, Wai. You want to marry me. And I say, that's phenomenal. But let me just play the field and see what my options are before I commit to walking down the aisle with you. But your proposal was phenomenal.
Well, what if we had a great chat prior about grills, and barbecues and propane? It could be a great chat regardless, but maybe you just might come to a little bit of a disagreement, or at least a temporary hold on discussions at some point.
So you're saying they need to raise the stakes.
Exactly. Yes. Maybe a little bit of seasoning on the current deals to see. Yeah. I mean, again, this is all kind of some public posturing from Nick Khan, with very much, I think, in mind negotiations, but also in mind investors in the stock price. And of course, anything that makes it sound like a lot of people are in the running for these particular deals is going to be beneficial. So I don't know how much like new information we necessarily had, other than maybe the knowledge that the Fox deal has been up, but the USA deal is still in the exclusive window, although that's probably going to end up running out before we hear the end of this particular story. But it's always interesting to try to dissect what a Nick Khan interview truly means.
We're going to play one more clip from Nick Khan, and this is in regards to the third hour of Raw. And Nick Khan was asked about this recently on the earnings call about potentially getting more risque in the third hour. So here's Nick Khan about some of their talks when it comes to that 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock Eastern portion of Raw.
Raw is 3 hours. We don't anticipate that changing, but there's internal conversations on the 10 to 11 hour. What do we do with that? Do we make it a little more adult friendly, since on Monday nights, most kids, certainly my kids, are supposed to be in bed by 10 o'clock? So to make it a little more adult theme is something that we're discussing internally. Right now, 40% of our audience are women, and 50% of the folks who attend our live events attend with someone under the age of 18. So we want to make sure that we keep our base happy while we expand it. We think that's an opportunity. We also think after we're settled on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, as we talk through new nights of the week and new content, is that something we could do with an additional show?
On that note, so this is one thing that kind of gets me is, our base. We don't want to upset our base. Number one is that, okay, 40% of our audience is women. I don't think women necessarily have an opposition to adult themed programming if they want to go that way. And when it comes to kids, their giant spike with kids was when this was the most raunchy of shows as well. So, I mean, you can certainly, to me, the question is your advertisers and how do they feel about your content taking on more of an edgier tone in that third hour. That to me would be the question more than necessarily. I don't think it would turn off kids, and I don't think it would turn off women either.
Well, what is the goal of going edgier for a 10 to 11? Do they want to attract younger males? Is that the idea? What is the idea behind even suggesting?
I think they have tried so hard to maintain that second hour audience in hour 3, and no matter what they put in the third hour, it falls. And this is their latest experiment, is if we make it its own hour that has its distinct characteristics, that's our latest attempt. Can that offset natural burnout that we have seen over the course of 11 years of this 3 hour Raw? That historically with the 2 hour Raws, your audience would peak for the end of the show because that's when the big angle would happen and you would have the overrun segment. And at this point, it's the second hour, as we're currently seeing the trends, that's the big hour. And then it's a precipitous drop in the third hour. So if we spice it up in hour 3, would that be able to keep people's attention for an extra hour? I think that would be their goal.
Right. Yeah. No, and it's understandable why they'd be looking at ideas. I guess I question whether or not going more adult themed is any sort of solution. I feel like they made half-assed attempts at a Raw Underground or things like that might be that might have been headed towards that sort of direction. Like what exactly would adult themed even mean?
It means Cody comes out at the first hour and says, "Hey, Seth Rollins, I want a title match." And if he doesn't get an answer, he comes out at 10:30. He says, "Hey, asshole, I want a title match."
Right.
It's all within the same show. So it's like these characters, suddenly they just get raunchy after a certain hour.
Yeah. I like maybe Cody comes out and he's like, "Boy, do I have something to say to you. But I'm going to wait until the third hour where we don't have a TV 14
Bring
rating.
back the
whatever.
Cody countdown clock.
That's it. Yeah.
Cody goes uncensored at 10:01.
Yeah, I don't know. I think any sort of like attempt at like being promoting something to be more risque just usually to me fails flat. Like storytelling, good professional wrestling, just a good product, I think is all you need. It's not about, a movie rating. It's not about gore. It's not about like, all these sort of gimmicks. Just provide
and they don't do that.
show.
They don't do any of this blood and guts stuff.
Right, of course, yeah. I mean, 3 hours is a challenge. 3 hours is a challenge regardless, and I at this point, I still don't think they found a solution for it yet on a weekly basis to maintain people throughout those 3 hours. It's interesting also to hear Nick Khan like kind of publicly talk about these ideas without, any sort of like concrete sort of decision, just to kind of create some headlines or maybe to give people the impression that they recognize that this is an issue that they want to improve on.
Yeah, and I think like there was a time that I think that this would have resonated with a certain part of your fan base that felt disillusioned where the product had gone. And I don't sense that tone at all. Like, there was a point where people were so upset about the move to PG. And I thought that was such a short-sighted complaint that people were really missing the mark, that PG was not handcuffing them from putting on compelling television. And under the same restraints, they've been producing generally pretty good television over this past year. And the rating has not been a problem. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can introduce adult themes. It does come a little heavy-handed when you're outright stating it. It's like me stating, well, in about 20 minutes, I'm going to be funny. It's like, well, how about you let me know when I'm funny, and I'm not going to tell you when I'm being funny.
Again, like, what exactly, other than gore and violence and maybe the promise of, like, I don't know, PG-13 nudity, what exactly is adult themes? You know, what are you going to talk about? Taxes? You're going to talk about, like, you know, I don't know,
the debt ceiling,
drugs. What?
The debt ceiling.
The debt ceiling. Yeah. Are you going to talk about steroids in the third hour? I mean, those would be some seriously adult themes.
Coming up at the end of the show, Vince McMahon will announce if he's backing Trump or DeSantis for the primary.
That would be quite.
That could be a tough choice.
That would be a hook for me. I would stick around to listen to that. Hulk Hogan addresses his history in the third hour. Come and check us out. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan addresses his speed bump.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if this is just kind of Nick Khan throwing shit out there, seeing what sticks, seeing what attracts attention. I mean, certainly it attracted a little bit this time.
Again, he's very calculated with this. I don't think this is him just spitballing this. And he has brought this up in the past, like not all that long ago. I'm sure it's beyond just the throwing it out there phase, but it's one that I don't know if it's one to put too much stock into, that it would be some game changer for them. The last comment here, we don't have a clip for this, but he did state, and Brandon Thurston did a great job on his Patreon recapping these notes, stating, we're still open to a third hour for SmackDown. That's right. I did not misspeak. For SmackDown. Fox, as it's currently constituted, is a 2-hour prime time. So that's the deal that Fox wanted to do 4 or 5 years ago. And Brandon wrote that he made it clear that Raw or SmackDown could be moved to any night of the week. He again noted Amazon wants to program different nights of the week. So he is very much flying the flag of Amazon and the flexibility of Raw and SmackDown onto different nights and expanding SmackDown to a third hour, which to me was inevitable that would come up in these talks that we spoke about during the last set of clips last week. So those are some of the more interesting notes, and also looking at the idea of a long-term goal of all of their premium live events being attached to site fees. And that's the natural direction they're going in, and stating that they can pair these premium live events with markets where the television deals are coming up, getting key people to attend the shows, and mentioning that with the Canadian deal coming up, they were just at Elimination Chamber, and Sami Zayn was in the main event and said, one of the advantages we have is that we can cast the protagonist in his hometown. It's like, this is wild. You have the control of going to a market, building up expectation behind that hometown hero, and we can control that. But he did not bring up the amount of heat that they have given up by not just having him embarrassed in his hometown either. I mean, that is right. A bit of a different philosophy here. It's like this light bulb went off. It's like, wait a minute, this is great. You're telling me we could have a Conor McGregor in Ireland and we don't have to gamble that he's going to lose a fight on the way to getting that big fight in Ireland. We can control the outcomes. We can build someone up for their market. This is earth-shattering news to me.
I think somebody should tell all the professional wrestling bookers out there that this is possible now.
All right, that's our Nick Khan bit for the evening. Do you want to chat at all about Hulk Hogan, or do we?
Yeah, let's do it.
He was on the MMA Hour today, and it was, as always, it's an interesting interview from Hulk Hogan, and where truth begins and Hulk Hogan ends is an impossible calculation to make. But he was asked about this past decade and if it's tarnished his legacy, and if he had concerns about these events, namely the video where he made multiple racist comments, of it erasing his legacy. So this was the answer that he gave to Ariel Helwani.
Yes, 1 second.
It was a temporary situation with the surgeries and some of the racial stuff that went down, that, it was a speed bump. but that's not who I was, and everybody knew that. So, it was a tough time. But the main thing that really got me were the surgeries over the last 10 years. That was the thing that was in question. When you come out of a back surgery and someone tells you you're never going to walk again, that'll really screw your head up, as far as getting kind of momentum back. The rest of the stuff, I had a bunch of people on my side. I had a huge support system, and, people that knew me stuck with me, and it's just been amazing to see how the fans have stayed with me.
So that was Hulk Hogan. And he was asked as a follow-up, do you have any regrets? He said, yes. And Ariel said, do you care to share them? And he stated, using the leg drop. That was his regret, which, I mean, he has consistently stated that, but my God, was the door open for him to just give a heartfelt, honest regret that he has. And it was using the leg drop and how it screwed up his back. He would have used the sleeper hold instead because he had the large arms, and that would have been a better finisher to use after all these years. And listen, I would think that he does not want to go into this, and the headline comes out that and revisiting all of this. But to me, pairing like the last 10 years, the worst, the racial stuff, but it's those surgeries as well. Like, I don't think they really belong in the same column. Like, certainly the surgeries have done a number. This guy has been through hell with his health, but a completely different situation than the racist comments. And, and people have brought this up, like why this sticks with Hogan so much. And I think it's because I don't think anyone has seen a certain level of kind of acknowledgement and ownership of this. And I think it's like, here's somebody that at the same time, like, he is back with WWE. He is able to go out and do all these different things. Like, he has been welcomed back by those that adore this guy. It's not as though he's some recluse and that this video ruined his career. I think there's many people that would like to be behind a Hulk Hogan, but have not been satisfied with kind of how he has just kind of brushed this aside and with the belief it will go away. And therefore, when a comment like this comes out, I think it just brings everyone back to 2015 and the handling of the whole fallout of that.
Yeah, the backstage sort of a report that took place of him basically being sorry that he got caught, and not necessarily for the things he said. I'd have to laugh, John, because I probably shouldn't be expecting anything more from Terry Bollea at this point. I mean, it's been a long time. You'd figured like I think some level of change might have been taking place within him, and this is something like, if you read those comments, this is something he should be using every opportunity for the rest of his life to atone for publicly. And instead, he's continuing to try to shove it underneath the carpet to minimize its impact and its effects on a great deal of his audience. And he deserves, I think, all the criticism he continues to still get, because he refuses to really have that dialogue with the audience and with the public to really confront what had happened.
Yeah. And I give credit for Ariel bringing that up and not just, doing a wrestling interview, but bringing it up, because it's not like this guy is asked about it all that often, and it comes up. But I mean, he's also, it sounds insane. The guy is turning 70 this summer, and he was doing the whole never say never about doing another match, which sounds utterly insane, but stated that Shane McMahon was trying to get him to come back for another match. And he said, well, let's see in 6 months how my back is doing, and noting that next year is the 40th anniversary of him beating the Iron Sheik. I think it would be insanity, the idea of this guy doing a match. But I would have said the same about Ric Flair last year. So I would say in WWE, I would say like a near 0% chance that would be happening. But I mean, stranger things have happened in professional wrestling as a whole. If the man was dead set on doing it, I like, his back has been so thrashed that the idea of this guy doing another match is frightening, to be quite honest.
Well, what's a match, right? Brett came back for a match, after a stroke, and he could just be standing on an apron during a tag team match, come in, probably won't be delivering many leg drops.
Can't do the leg drop.
maybe a big boot, maybe his,
He debuts
whatever
the sleeper.
clothesline. Yeah, an axe bomber, perhaps. So
What he should have taken. He should have gone with that axe bomber.
Mm-hmm.
Final things here. Super Juniors. We are down to the final 4 on Tuesday's show. Definitely an upset with Teton defeating his LIJ stablemate Hiromu Takahashi, and won with the Yave Immortal, his version of the Muda lock. So Hiromu is out, and then Speedball Mike Bailey won the block entirely, beating Leo Rush in a really great match with the Flamingo Driver. So Speedball is number 1 and Teton number 2. And then today's show saw El Desperado win the block after submitting Robbie Eagles, and then Master Wato advances after beating Kevin Knight because Yo lost to Yoshinobu Kanemaru, who was the spoiler. So the semifinals will see Speedball Mike Bailey against Master Wato and El Desperado against Teton. And to me, this continues New Japan's booking of 2023, where this, I would say, if you were looking at this, could you have seen Desperado and Speedball in the final 4? Yes. Could I have seen Master Wato and Teton, and more importantly, not Hiromu in the final 4? That was definitely surprising. So I think this is a very captivating final 4. Desperado has really turned it up in these last couple of matches. Speedball has been excellent throughout. Master Wato needs to win this thing and destroy his outfit, rename himself, and dye his hair. That's what I'm hoping for. The end of Master Wato.
Winner should get a makeover. That should be what's at stake.
Even Teton.
Sure. Yeah. New fresh mask.
He could. Maybe he can rebrand himself as a Teton Sports.
He could. Yeah.
All possible. Who's your pick? Who's going to win this thing?
Oh, man.
I don't think Speedball already beat Hiromu. I don't think you need to go that direction. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that means Wato upsets him or you put Speedball in the final, but I would state that probably Desperado and Wato are my I cannot see Teton winning this one, but the New Japan has surprised me this year. We got Yota Tsuji headlining Dominion in a few weeks, so nothing is out of the possibility.
Yeah. I guess I would go with Desperado because a pre-makeover Wato, maybe I don't necessarily see getting that top spot.
All right. And Raw, 1,638,000 viewers, 0.54 in the demo. Not quite the 0.6, as Nick Khan has been noting, but close enough. They had a very low opening hour, third lowest first hour of the year. And this was their third lowest viewers of the year, but only a 2-week low in 18 to 49. It was their older audience that was down this week with 35 to 49 and 50 plus. And this was up against a huge Denver Nuggets, LA Lakers game that did 8.2 million viewers. So I'm sure the NBA is ecstatic that the Lakers are gone. And there was also a NHL game doing 1.5 million viewers. So, and a very low final hour as well as the Lakers Nuggets game was wrapping up. NXT on Tuesday, 578,000 viewers, 0.16 in the demo. So small increase in viewers, but a 14% jump in 18 to 49. And it was a case of men in the demo, their highest since April 25th, but women 18 to 49, lowest since April 4th. So different pattern there among the 18 to 49 demo. This was against the Miami Heat Boston Celtics game that did 6.5 million viewers, and the Dallas Stars against Way's team, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, that are inching closer to the Stanley Cup final. And tonight's NHL game actually is, look at this. So tonight, if Florida wins, if the Florida Panthers beat the Carolina Hurricanes, then Rampage is on Friday night. If the Hurricanes win, then Rampage is on Saturday night. This coming from Dave Meltzer. So it is 3-3 with 40 seconds left in the third period. So we're probably going to overtime. So that means we might get the breaking news here on Rewind-A-Dynamite of what night is Rampage on. Because if you notice tonight, they had to plug it as Rampage this week.
Yeah.
They couldn't promote a night. They didn't know.
It's been really difficult for that show and the stature of that show. This coupled with the news of Collision essentially kind of taking that second slot. I feel terrible for all the programs that have been exclusively built on Rampage and not Dynamite, like Taya versus Jade, for instance. It's been rough goings for that show.
They're lucky Dynamite just could stay consistent on TBS and that didn't get bounced around had that been on TNT a couple of years ago. So tonight's show was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, which tomorrow, May 25th, is the 4-year anniversary of the very first Double or Nothing in this building.
Wow.
Arrival of John Moxley, that ladder match with the Lucha Brothers against the Young Bucks, the first AEW show ever. So kicking off tonight, we had 3 title matches on the show, beginning with Orange Cassidy against Kyle Fletcher for the International Championship. Orange Cassidy destroyed. He's coming into this with every injury known to man, as he has made 21 consecutive title defenses and going for number 22. And Kyle Fletcher's game plan was to pile drive this guy so many times that he would have a broken neck by the end of it. He was caught with a beach break on the floor, but then Fletcher comes back with a spinning sit-out Michinoku driver, and Cassidy hits his own brain buster, and then Fletcher rolls through, hits another Michinoku driver, and then one off of the turnbuckle delivered to Cassidy. He goes for the Grimstone, but it's countered into a swinging DDT. Orange Cassidy takes a super kick to the hand, affecting his orange punch hand, and then Fletcher lifts, and it's countered with a cross-legged roll-up by Cassidy in 15 minutes and 5 seconds, making his 22nd title defense. But afterwards, we get the Aussie Open is All Elite graphic from Tony Khan. So even in defeat, they have scooped up the now former IWGP Tag Champions and Strong Tag Champions.
Yeah. I guess that the week started off with pretty bad news for Aussie Open, but I mean, hey, a few days in, not only did they get this graphic, but Kyle Fletcher had quite the TV appearance here. I thought the match was very good. Yeah, I thought it took wonderful advantage of the ongoing Cassidy injury story. Even before the match starts, you had Fletcher basically seeing blood in the water, and just he's immediately going for the attack, going for the kill. And it was a great excuse for him to show his incredible intensity and fire. I thought he looked incredibly comfortable in there as a single star on a stage like this. Felt very confident, and all his moves looked very clean. And again, the fire was really strong. I think Cassidy too was wonderfully portrayed. You know, he was not afraid to go for the count-out finish. He's desperate to win basically at this point because he's hanging on by a thread, and it's a very unique take on a title run. And I think it's made even like what essentially is sort of like a throwaway TV title defense before the pay-per-view. It even makes this compelling. So, man, Fletcher gained a whole lot from this, I thought. And Cassidy continues to do wonderful things with this title run. I think it's been fantastic.
Very similar to Mark Davis in the New Japan Cup when he's ended up moving on and had some excellent singles matches. So it just gives you that capability with Fletcher and Davis beyond just being tied together as a unit. But obviously, that's a big pickup for AEW. And with the added television, hopefully they will have plenty of showcase.
Yeah, Fightful reported that Davis's surgery was paid for by Tony Khan even before they were signed. So I'm sure that played really well with the two of them. But even without that, I think AEW is a really great choice. Continues to still be for any sort of tag team. The amount of matchups that are available for them are pretty limitless right now, and does that, continue to open the relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling? Do they get to stay a part of the, United Empire? Maybe a potential trios with Will Ospreay, eventually down the road as well. So all these opportunities are still out there for storytelling and great matches.
Yeah, and it probably takes the rush to get the FTR match. Like Mark Davis being back for Forbidden Door would seem pretty touch and go, and that's a pretty...
He did say like it would be sooner than we think, right?
It's like it was like arthroscopic surgery, and we're talking about like 4 weeks until that pay-per-view. I mean,
that might be a bit soon. Yeah.
It's tough. Like people have come back in that time frame, but it's, again, you have them under contract now. It's like you could do it by then, but if they're already in AEW, like there's no rush to have to do it on that date. You could save it for something larger, and you can build up to it more on television. Renee interviewed Ricky Starks, who is in the Blackjack Battle Royal. And by the end of tonight, we only know Cassidy and Starks. There was no announcement of anyone else. You can make guesses that you would assume Jay White and Juice Robinson are in this because they attacked Starks and state that they're never going to get rid of them. And they threw him into an equipment box, beat him with a chair, and said that he is not done yet with Bullet Club Gold.
Mm-hmm. Like I said last week, I think Jay White has been really underutilized in a speaking capacity during this run at AEW. Tonight, you got to hear him say a little bit in a backstage setting during this attack. He's very electric and very charismatic when he speaks, and I just wish this segment or this feud up until this point, especially with somebody on the other end like a Ricky Starks, I just wish that they gave these two the time to just cut promos back and forth on each other for at least one segment live in front of an audience. I think that would have done a whole lot more than anything up until this point. So, I mean, it's a match. Yeah.
The way seal of approval. It's a match.
I'm sure it'll be good, but man, let's I'm not exactly like the hottest for this program.
The next segment was our first of the four pillars speaking with their go home promos, beginning with Jack Perry. This was a taped interview, a sit down where he was talking about driving to Las Vegas all these years and how he used to wrestle at a casino right down the street, and mentions driving here for the first Double or Nothing during a really challenging time. This being the first Double or Nothing was just 2 months after his father died. And last year, leaving here with Christian Cage, not aware of what was about to happen between them. And this ring gives him a purpose and allows him to live the life he chooses. And on Monday, when I drive home on that same road, I'll be doing it as AEW World Champion. Something tells me that will not be happening, but he seems very set on that goal.
Haven't looked at betting odds for this, but I imagine they're probably positioning Jungle Boy as the person with the lowest chances. I would say this whole program has kind of shown that he is definitely the weakest of the four on the microphone. We all kind of knew that going in, but this was his chance to see just exactly how far he was from the rest of the pack. And I would say he still has a long ways to go to match up with, the likes of a Sammy or Darby, and especially an MJF. But the thing is, he doesn't have to be MJF in order to be a successful potential top guy. He needs to connect with the crowd in other ways, and he clearly already does that through his in-ring performances. But I do think at this point, in order for somebody to be believable as a top guy, he does have to improve. But he's working hard. You can tell, he's really kind of getting out of his comfort zone for these sort of performances, these sort of promos, I should say. This one I thought was well scripted. It's just a delivery that I think needs work.
It's just, they need him, and even Sammy Guevara, it's been really tough to do the babyface promos. And for Jack Perry, it's just going to take more repetition for these guys to find their voice. And, he's being asked to deliver like a main event go home promo, and he's just not there yet. The odds, if you're curious, Jack Perry is the biggest underdog at plus 800, Sammy Guevara plus 600, Darby Allin plus 500, MJF minus 5,000.
Seems about right. Yeah. I feel like no, there's really no chance.
Is that going to impact people's overall interest? This is, I would say, the number 2 match on the show. Is the lack of a believable challenger going to hurt that? Or do you think that it's enough that this is probably going to be an unbelievable match, and it is for 3 fresh names in a main event setting along with MJF?
I do think it hurts sort of like the sort of I don't know, aura of a match like this feeling like an actual main event. And it might be on paper, but we all know like the hook for this particular show is going to be anarchy in the arena. And I think it was destined to be that from the get-go, when you have names like, the BCC and the Elite and that stipulation headlining the show. But again, this is to boost the perception and an investment for your future with these 4 guys. So in that sense, we can talk about later whether or not that's been successful. But I also don't think this is expected to do the heavy lifting the way an Anarchy Arena is. No,
tonight it was very clear that is the promoted main event of this show, regardless of its placement. FTR come out, and Cash is running down Jeff Jarrett and says that FTR, they've been outsmarted. But Lethal and Jarrett, they're good, but you've also been lucky, and your luck runs out Sunday. Dax says that Jarrett attached his name to the best tag team in the world, but the tag team championships aren't going to a bunch of TNA rejects. So you might want to call the Queen of the Mountain for job security. And I'm not talking about your bitch of a wife. I'm talking about Dixie Carter. And Taz said, I liked what they said.
Oh, goodness.
So when is Dixie showing up? Is she the next one to randomly pop up on AEW programming as the new manager for Sabu? Maybe.
Maybe. Clearly, there's plenty of room in this Jay Lethal, Jeff Jarrett stable. So why not get everybody involved? Maybe Surge. Yeah, maybe Surge can make an appearance. Throw in, the country singer as well. Swag.
Surge needs to show up so AJ can get his heat back after Surge knocked him out. Remember that where he laid him out with a punch?
Bring in Claire Lynch, all of aces and eights. I mean, if this stable's identity is going to be, an XTNA stable, then sure, why not? Anytime you bring in a name like Dixie, I think it's going to get a decent reaction from this crowd.
Mark Briscoe walks out. Cash says, we went to hell and back 3 times with you and your brother last year. Sunday, we're going to go to hell and back for you. Briscoe says that after what we've been through, we're blood brothers for life. But what was that pile driver about? Dax apologizes. He couldn't see. Says, shake my hand like a man. And Mark swats it away, and the crowd can't believe this. So then Mark slaps Dax, and Mark exits, shoves Karen away, then shoves Dutt away, and he slaps Jeff Jarrett on the way up, looks at Jay Lethal, and just gives him a look. He says, we're boys, but I'm tired of this bullshit. And he goes to the back. I liked Mark Briscoe in the segment. I usually hate the referee and what allegiance will he have in the match, but I thought that this was laid out in a clever enough way that it was intriguing. Like I don't know if this is going to be the show stealer on Sunday, but I think it will be well put together given who you have. Like Jarrett and Lethal, they're a very good team, and they're in there with FTR. That I think that this will more than hold up its end on Sunday.
I think this could certainly be a sleeper, and I don't even know if I should be saying that with FTR in the ring. I think the story and angle are kind of ridiculous, especially the errant pile driver, which I still can't really kind of get over. Like how somebody could just.
I did it to the mailman the other day. I was waking up, I was kind of groggy, and boom, went right through my patio.
If I was Mark Briscoe, I would have plenty of right to be suspicious of Dax's true reasons.
I think the audience was leaning towards that at the end, like from believing it was this mistake to at the end, like if they're choosing, they're going with Mark over the words of Dax Harwood.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Mark Briscoe continues to be incredibly charismatic and fun to watch in what limited appearance he continues to have. I hope coming out of this, he gets like a really solid singles program or even a tag team program for himself.
Renee interviewed Sammy Guevara, and she mentions that the offer still stands from MJF that if he lays down, he would receive the payment. But Sammy Guevara turns it down. He's not for sale. He had old bosses that offered him promotions, but said he would have to live in the real world and grow up. I want to know what these promotions were. Like he worked at like a fast food place, right? Wasn't that like his job? He said he used to have to support his wrestling.
And what fast food place? So I know not to go because I don't know if I'd want Darby Allin making my burgers.
Sammy Guevara.
Oh, Sammy. I'm sorry. Okay,
this is Sammy. Yeah.
Darby worked at the 99-cent store, of course. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. They all had shitty jobs before wrestling, and he said that he told all his bosses that they could shove their offers up their ass. I mean, to be like the head like French fry operator, I guess. And he says,
French fry operator?
I don't know. I don't know what is like if he was entry level. I mean, I had to do that once. So
yeah, didn't you work at New York Fries?
I was a French fry operator.
Yep, that's right. Yes.
New York Fries.
Like what was like training? Any tips you'd give to future French fry operators?
Always clean out the oil every other day. Don't let it sit for a week. It's really gross. And if you want to ask people, I could tell you the temperatures as well. Like you want it,
You still remember the temperatures to this day?
I think it would be 3 stages you would have to put the fries through. The first one, I believe, was it 325?
3 temperatures? Like so 3 fries?
Yeah, you go through 3 stages before the fries are prepared and made. Yeah.
That's why they're so good.
Yeah.
Do you season them as well yourself? Like you do all that?
If I had to, yeah.
Do you cut the potatoes yourself, or is that?
Oh yeah, there was a fry machine, like the little like the thing you just. I did.
So what do you do? Like you peel it yourself, and then you cut it yourself.
You didn't have to peel them, but you did have to rinse them. Like these things are disgusting.
They come in pre-peeled, and you got to clean them off.
No, they're peeled. You could peel them. You didn't have to. It was.
Excuse me? Why not? I guess you could eat it with the skin. You just have to wash it. To be honest, how careful were you with the washing?
Very careful, because I didn't want someone to die and it be on my watch. That would get taken out of my paycheck.
So. If you were working at the stand, I would gladly choose your fries over Darby Allin's or Sammy's.
Well, then they came over and they said, "Hey, do you want to be the the potato distributor for your group?" And I said, "You know what? I have dreams, so shove it up your ass." And I walked out.
All that experience, and yet the man still hasn't tried a poutine.
Gone. I actually did get towards the end, they said, "Do you want to become the treasurer of this movie theater?" So I'd be in charge of all the money. And
wow.
Yeah, they presented it to me. They're like, "This is a big step up for you." And I said, "That's funny. Here's my 30 days notice." And I gave my notice because I just got a job at a radio station. My real passion.
There you go.
And I was
no bidding war for John Pollock.
No, I said, "Shove it here." House of Black against AR Fox, Grand Metalik, and Blake Christian for the Trios Championship that took place inside of the Thunderdome.
So you're speaking of the lighting, of course.
I was writing this down. I looked up and I thought we were in the Thunderdome for a minute. A lot of people like this lighting, so I'm not here to bag on it. The lighting has not grabbed me yet, but it's not a turnoff either. So I'm in the middle.
So last week they only did the spotlight on the ring, and there were complaints from several people, including
I like this more than the other. To me, it looked too much like just an empty house show, and this just looks like you're on a drug trip or something.
I think this looks like a barrel of fries inside a fryer at New York Fries, John. I kind of felt like tonight was a little too distracting. I personally like the more raw nature of that single spotlight look, but we'll see what the discourse is afterwards, and I'm assuming they will keep this for the time being.
The dealer's choice, one man in, one man out, but it doesn't require a tag, even though we had constant tags in this match. I mean, they were tagging, right, although towards the end they weren't. Metalik and Blake Christian hit dives to the floor, and then Fox did a springboard inverted senton to the floor, but missed the 450 on Buddy Matthews, gets hit with the stomp, and then Buddy Matthews, borrowing, applies the prism trap of Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, shout out to mommy.
And then King, we get a triple submission here because as the prism trap is applied, Brody hangs Blake Christian from the apron in a choke, and Malachi Black applies the knee bar on Metalik. So it was the cool visual with all three champions having submissions applied, and the bell rang in 5 minutes and 18 seconds, which not one of your like crazy, insane trios matches, but it was short, quick, and they packed a lot into the 5 minutes they had.
Showcase for House of Black. So the Acclaimed match is not booked yet?
Oh, is that not on the pay-per-view? No, I guess not.
I don't think so. Let me just double check right now, because I think they would have mentioned it if it was. And I think we would have seen some interaction with the Acclaimed.
They could set that up on Rampage, potentially. Yeah, I don't have it listed here.
Why wouldn't you do it tonight if that's the case? Anyway, at this point I'm willing to bet it might be for afterwards, because I don't think you would have had House of Black appear on TV on the Go Home show and not do something with the Acclaimed. So
well, maybe we have a reason to wait for Friday night's edition of Rampage now that the Panthers have swept the Carolina Hurricanes with a overtime goal.
Okay. So what time? 10 o'clock?
Rampage should be on, pending any issues. It should be on Friday at 10 now, because there's no NHL for Friday night to bump them.
All right.
So there you have it.
Set your DVRs.
We continue, and they went through the Elites reunion last week, bunch of countdown clips that were thrown in, and we go backstage to the BCC. Bryan Danielson says that we have two objectives this week. The first is for Claudio and Yuta to win the ROH tag titles tonight. The second is anarchy in the arena to end the Elite. Take it away, John. Moxley says, we are the Elite, and we are the best in the world. And I'm not here trying to sell you something, although he was selling us on something. He puts up his hand, and my hand isn't shaking when I make that proclamation. Fans part their money to watch the greatest sport in the world, and no one does it better than us. This is the major leagues, and are you willing to stand in the line of fire and deliver when it counts? This Sunday, it will count. In a storm of violence, we will stand calm, ready, take aim, and fire, and you will see the difference between professionals and amateurs. This guy's my promo of the year. John Moxley is as consistent as it comes, and on this night, he had a great one at the end of the show on top of this. But this was everything you want on a go-home show. And dude, John Moxley to me was the MVP of the show because he sold me on this pay-per-view and how violent this match is going to be. He was incredible.
Even though Bryan Danielson has kind of taken on, like a leadership type of role, or at least, speaking type of role, Moxley continues to be the best promo of the group and maybe even the best promo in the entire company. And he all but needed, 2 minutes here to really kind of prove that fact. I mean, just ultra serious, and like, you do a great job of recapping, John. I think you're the best at it. Okay. Best in the world, arguably.
I can't get his tone and his inflections.
But his delivery is unmatched. Like, those words on a paper with a lesser, talented sort of promo person it would just not work. But the way, like, he talks like a real, cowboy in a Western movie, and he does it just off the cuff. I imagine, nails it every single time. Just a great promo.
Just needs a gas mask,
cowboy hat.
Like, it's unbelievable.
Vegas.
when you see. Yeah, you're right.
Or was that Atlantic City? I forget.
Oh, I don't know. I've put it on my mind. MJF comes out and he insults Las Vegas, insults Guevara and Darby. He wants Guevara to keep his tongue hanging out and put it into a light socket, and he wants Darby to try and climb Mount Everest with his shoelaces untied, and for Perry to be thrown into an echo chamber and speak so that he can bore himself to death. He knows how important this match is. It's the main event, and it doesn't get more homegrown than the four of us. And we didn't have the cheat code of being on national television prior to AEW. And people didn't know them 4 years ago. And we have given you the best matches, the best moments. We aren't just a part of AEW. We are AEW. And he doesn't want to be AEW anymore. He's kind of bored and sick of this place and the lack of competition. He's sick of fans not respecting him, and brings up his contract coming due and says that he's wrestling 3 other guys where he doesn't have to be pinned to lose the title. Says that's not a coincidence with this contract coming due. So it's the idea that Tony Khan needs to get this belt off of him. And maybe I'm going to take my ball and go home, because this is my ball. I earned it, and I've run with it faster than anyone can keep up with me. No one is on the level of the devil. So this was the first part. The second part, Darby Allin comes out. But I thought that this was a very... it's a tough spot for MJF to be in, because in most cases, like, he comes in and he just goes all guns blazing against his opponents. But it is like he needed to build those 3 up in this promo while still staying true to his MJF persona. And I thought it's a very difficult balancing act that he had to be tasked with here, because I think, he all but said, I'm a minus 5,000 favorite for a reason. And I have to convince you to lay some money on these other 3.
It's also difficult to really direct your attention against 3 other opponents, and splitting your attention and your promos and your ammunition to 3 separate ways.
This has been built up as like 3-on-1. It's like, any one of us can win this title. The goal is to get it off MJF.
And so, I think that, coupled with maybe the whole detour with the Sammy Guevara pairing, I feel like has had this storyline lose a little bit of steam. MJF here, I think, tried to do a bit of a reset of his own character by reminding us of that War of 2024 storyline. But even that feels at this point pretty cold, especially when it's been replaced in real life by real life drama with a person who has been threatening to leave this company. So I don't know if that feels all that interesting right now, but I'm almost at this point looking forward to what's after this program for MJF to really kind of ramp that up.
Darby comes out. Interesting that of the challengers, Darby was the one that got the live promo with MJF. And I think definitely was the person to do the live promo with. And of the three, I think clearly the best of the three tonight. He says he's lost a lot in his life, but hasn't lost his mind. He graduated high school in 2011, as we all just felt a bit older with that statement. And he was told to play it safe. Don't expect too much in life. What awful guidance counselors or whoever told him this on his graduation. Here's your diploma. Yeah. Don't expect too much. This is where you peak. So it led to him cleaning toilets at a 99-cent store. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know there were bathrooms at the dollar store.
Yeah, I've never went to a 99. Like, have you ever been to a Dollarama and asked for the bathroom?
Never. No.
I don't know if they offer that.
Well, I'm sure they were in immaculate condition. You just have to ask. He said he was meant to be wrestling. So he moved to Atlanta and lived in his car, telling himself he didn't deserve to live anywhere else until he makes it. AEW allowed him to make it, and no other company would let me skate with Tony Hawk or climb Mount Everest. I'm not a moldable puppet. I want to be the face of AEW, and therefore to become the face, I need to be the champion. And I am going to beat you. And maybe I'll do it with a headlock takeover. So MJF kicks him in the balls. Guevara runs down. MJF runs away to the ramp, and Jack Perry comes out, clotheslining MJF, lifting up the belt. And that's our final segment with the four going into Sunday. I thought Darby did a very good promo here. And, you know, the end, they did not get this program to where I envisioned it being now that we are days away from the pay-per-view. But I think a lot of this is going to be remembered on the match, which I think is going to be unbelievable. And this number, like I am not expecting a low number for Double or Nothing. And that truly is like I don't think they're going to get the lion's share of the credit if this is a very positive number, but they deserve some of it because this is the number 2 match.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a firm, semi-main event or and remember, like, this has been the bulk of the TV heading into this. I mean, they've been building Elite versus BCC, but they also never really confirmed the match until very late into the game. Actually kind of same with this one, but at least we've seen these interactions really like 2 months now.
This was starting, I want to say early to mid-March they were starting this.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was a pretty decent closing segment here. I think the feud has at least rebounded decently from that little detour. I also think like they're really hinting at a Sammy swerve that's going to take place with at the end here with him turning back to heel and maybe taking MJF up on his offer. I hope they don't resort to that until late in the match, but it can add an interesting element and a wrinkle. Overall, I think it's been productive in giving the other pillars some airtime. I think, however, Sammy's time in the spotlight is rather unfocused, especially like for people that might be watching All Access that are like, you start to question whether or not they're actually trying to push this guy as a babyface like you see on All Access or as a heel. And by the end of it, it feels kind of confusing. And I don't necessarily know if he's in a much better spot than when he was beforehand. Jungle Boy, I think, has shown improvement, but still shows that he needs a lot of it in order to be in the conversation with an MJF or even a Darby. And I think Darby, while he's the best of the three, he's kind of blended into the pack. And so I continue to ask the question, like, would this program have been more beneficial if you just solely focused on Darby, put the whole month's attention, at least, after that tournament, for instance, solely on a Darby versus MJF program?
I don't know if it would have been a giant increase in believability in the challenger, but now having watched the build, and this is someone that typically does not like the multi-mans for a big title match, but I did like this because it was of the story that they had with these four. But you have to say that Darby certainly stood out the most of the challengers in all of his segments. I don't think he had like a bad week. And
we knew that kind of going in that he was the most advanced, or at least, the one with the best connection to the audience who could also talk and have incredibly memorable matches as well. But like you said, John, I think the bulk of it, the memory of this match will be coming out of the match itself, and if they steal the show in the end, that's all everybody will remember and all of it will be elevated.
Is this one at all heightened with the announcement of Chicago and the idea that this pay-per-view MJF retains and then, lights go out and we get sympathy for the devil. And then on the screen, there is the mask and he unmasks and there is Phil. Hi, Max. I'm back.
I think it would be a great way to generate buzz, but would that indicate Punk going directly for MJF and the title? Is that the program you're going to go to right away?
I mean, it's one possibility.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you would go to Punk versus MJF unless you're going to have him win or even headline. And I don't know if Punk headlining. Well, I guess All Out would be like the next big one, and that could be an MJF Punk match.
We'll get to more with Punk with the announcement. They previewed the ladder match. More comments. We just had Arn and Wardlow talking about all the damage that Wardlow can do with a ladder, and Arn stating 4 days as he made the Horseman sign. Taya Valkyrie against Lady Frost. Lady Frost has been doing ROH matches, got an entrance here, and they go through the break, and Lady Frost ends up hitting her with the snowball fight, and then a tornado crossbody. Taya lands a spear, and Jade Cargill, Layla Gray, and Mark Sterling are out there cheering on Lady Frost. And after Taya hits a curb stomp, she's signaling for Road to Valhalla, but then like gets distracted, like mouthing off to like Jade. So we just get a pause. There's a head kick by Frost, but then Taya comes back with a knee strike, backbreaker, and Road to Valhalla for the win. And Sterling holds back Jade Cargill ahead of Sunday's TBS title match.
When I say I feel bad for all the Rampage time slot bouncing around, I was specifically thinking about this feud because really the bulk of it has all taken place on Rampage, with that the exception being that Jade versus Taya match that took place on Dynamite. And for that reason, it feels like if you're only watching Dynamite, which I am at this point, feels like I'm only kind of seeing snippets of what exactly this is. And it's a simple enough program. She wasn't able to use the move. Now she's able to use the move. Okay, great. I can't exactly say I'm that excited for the match. Nor do I necessarily see a possibility of title change. Do you, John?
Most likely not. No. Although I think we are getting to the point now where I think you need to be. I mean, we've been saying for a long time. I would say Taya is like the most compelling challenger they've built to this point.
Right. So I was glad at least to see this get some time on Dynamite. I hope that this becomes Jade's best pay-per-view match. I think she's had like impressive appearances, but I think we've also been creating a lot of those performances on a curve because she's somebody who's incredibly inexperienced holding a championship on a show with like decades-long veterans, on pay-per-views with decades-long veterans, and she's really great seated expectations in that sense. But can she come out of a pay-per-view with what would be a talked about, buzzed about, memorable match? And I think Taya gives her one of the best chances.
Marvez interviewed Hangman Page and asked about the status of his friendship with the Elite and said, "It's always been different between me and Kenny. We were never best friends, but we were always family." And he lists off all the injuries that the BCC have put on the Elite, and the price is blood, and the price will be paid on Sunday. So everyone in this match, they're promising a violent spectacle on Sunday. More to come. Shivani hosts a contract signing. So Adam Cole is out with Roderick Strong. The JAS come out. And by signing the contract, AEW is not responsible for what could happen. This is a personal contract between Chris Jericho and Adam Cole. Cole could not eat or sleep trying to figure out why Jericho attacked him and Britt Baker. Maybe it's because you're a scumbag, a disgusting human being, but he believes Jericho thinks he's invincible, but you're not invincible. I'm going to beat the hell out of you. The blood will be on my hands, and I like it that way. So sign the paper, bitch. And Jericho states that your head injury must be affecting your memory. So he replayed the attack on Britt Baker and asked what kind of a man would allow that to happen. So Strong is holding back Cole, calls him a coward and that he can't beat the Ocho, and notes to Adam Cole, it's 5-on-2. We have the numbers advantage. And Cole says, you're right. So that's why I made a call to someone in Las Vegas, someone I idolized growing up, who's crazier than all 5 of you. And I immediately thought of Mike Tyson. I thought he was bringing up Mike Tyson here. But no, it's the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu. Sabu comes out. And if you look closely here, he had a photo of Melissa Coates around his neck. This was his girlfriend that died 2 years ago, formerly with WWE, and had this around his neck, and then came out and he just starts throwing chairs. And he is going to be in the corner of Adam Cole. He was listed as the special enforcer. and got a pretty good pop coming out here. And I mean, I was saying to myself, what this contract signing needs, Sabu. Imagine if he had shown up for Trish and Becky Lynch on Monday.
Right. Yeah. And I think a perfect fit in as a replacement for Kyle O'Reilly or Bobby Fish in the Undisputed Era is Sabu. I think it's been a dream pairing we've wanted for a long time. Yeah. Not the name I expected when Cole brought up a surprise. I also didn't realize he was living in Vegas. I mean, I guess that really could be a wide number of people, but Sabu wasn't the person I was immediately thinking of. But I think it's a fun little like nostalgia thing, especially.
Are we going to get Jericho against Sabu on TV?
Not in a one. I mean, is he still wrestling? I don't even know.
He will do a match if necessary.
Like, is he doing a Sabu match?
I mean, what is a Sabu match in 2023? I mean, it's
like Arabian Facebusters. Like, is he doing crazy shit off of like chairs and everything?
I mean, it's
okay. So his last match was in 2021, John.
Yeah, I mean, you could get by on a TV match of just throwing chairs at people. Yeah.
Which is as much as I'm expecting him to do. I mean, knowing this guy, he's probably going to do maybe more than we're expecting. But I don't think a one-on-one match is necessarily in the cards. But hey, anything's possible.
AEW Women's Title Match preview. Tony Storm told Jamie Hayter, "I'm going to rip your arm off the bone and eat it raw." That's a threat. This is going to be a very violent pay-per-view. If that happens, how are you going to follow that? Rip an arm off and eat it. Not enough to rip it. Then I'm going to eat it in front of you.
What would Nick Khan say? Maybe giving him ideas for the third hour.
maybe that would be the adult entertainment. Coming up, someone loses an arm around 10:45. Daniel Garcia and Roderick Strong. This was another ECW tribute. We had these guys out, so we just went right into the match since they were out for the contract segment. They're chopping each other pretty heavy. Crowd was down during this match. Garcia's doing his dance, which Taz compared to Alex Wright. And then he goes for the Dragon Tamer. Strong breaks it and comes back with End of Heartache and wins the match. So 2 wins in a row with last week's Falls Count Anywhere match. And yes, they state that Sabu will be with Adam Cole and Roderick Strong on Sunday. So I'm sure he's going to be doing at least some spot in that match, if not more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Crowd was cold for this one, and I wondered if that would have been helped if like maybe you had some of the principal characters at least be around the ring, give some interaction. The way this was kind of positioned, it kind of felt like the party was over and all like the cool people are already long gone. Yet like
when Sabu leaves the party, I mean it's time to wrap things up.
But the new guy is still here, the new guy from out of town who just showed up. He's still kind of lingering around, so that might have helped things. But I mean, this was also towards the end of the show, so that might have been the reason as well.
They run down the pay-per-view card and also aired a quick video package of Willow Nightingale defeating Mercedes Moné, making her AEW debut. Is that the headline? Mercedes debuts on AEW programming. It was short. I was glad they fit this into the show and didn't let it just go. I mean, it was, you're pushing everything towards the pay-per-view. Willow has nothing to do on the pay-per-view, though. I would put her at least on the buy-in or something, getting her on the show, I would think. But
I really think her big push should be, I think the buy-in's a really good idea. I also think like coming out of Double or Nothing and the push towards Forbidden Door, she should be a principal focus. And I know they probably still have to build something with Jamie Hayter, but I mean, considering she's the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong champion and she's also an AEW contracted wrestler, they should be using her and promoting her as much as they can. Tonight I thought was a really good sign because they could have gone ahead and not promoted anything, because from all accounts this was not supposed to be a week that you were supposed to feature Willow. The fact that they did gives me a lot of hope that they are going to use this to their advantage. Yeah,
I mean, just the fact that they put the package in, I mean, I was glad they didn't ignore it. Right before the main event, here's the lineup for Rampage. So tentatively airing Friday night, it has Rush Dralistico and Preston Vance against Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed. So maybe we get a setup for the trios titles. Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida against Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir. Ethan Page and the Guns in action, and the Best Friends against Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. This sounds like a lineup that did not know what night of the week it was going to be airing when it was constructed.
Yeah.
Main event time, Claudio, Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta challenging the Lucha Bros for the ROH tag titles with Bryan Danielson on commentary, and he explains how BCC, they've been practicing three-quarter Nelsons. I don't know how many three-quarter Nelsons we're going to see on this most violent match in AEW history on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Mox was necessarily promising the most violent three-quarter Nelson you're ever going to see. Although we'll see, John. Maybe this was like a subtle tease, and like we'll see like a barbed wire three-quarter Nelson.
So it's funny because this book that I've been reading, it's an ECW press book. It's called The Wrestlers Wrestlers. I've had this for a while, so I just started reading it. And of all things, like just yesterday, okay, I'm going through, and one of the photos is they do a profile on William Regal, and the caption is William Regal applying a three-quarter Nelson on CM Punk.
Very interesting.
I mean, the two people that would have a tie to one Bryan Danielson. I mean, look at that.
Interesting.
So maybe this is the whole subtlety of the three-quarter Nelson reference way.
Could
Moving
be.
on. Did I totally skip over Tony Khan's announcement?
I thought you were saving it for the end.
Let's talk about it at the end. It is like the most important thing here. Yeah, I purposely meant to keep it off till the end. Phoenix was amazing in this match. I mean, he was just terrific here, especially when he was in with Claudio. But this was a very fun match. Giant swing by Claudio onto Phoenix with the sit-out dropkick by Yuta. And then he stops a Ricola bomb with a code red. Claudio drops Phoenix onto Yuta after being struck. There's a destroyer with Penta leaping off the back onto Claudio. And then Danielson is explaining after a Phoenix driver is delivered to Yuta that they're training their necks. They train their necks so we can kick out of holds like that. I bet the Elite aren't training their necks like that. There's a rocket launcher. Crowd is chanting Cero Miedo. And then a uppercut from Claudio from the floor connects with Phoenix. The referee is dealing with Alex Abrahantes on the apron when the Young Bucks come out from underneath the ring, yanking Claudio, and it leaves Yuta to take the double stomp into the Fear Factor as the champions retain in 10 minutes and 27 seconds. But very fun main event I found between the four of them, and you tie it into Anarchy in the Arena with the Bucks coming out, and that would lead to one more promo from Jon Moxley to get the audience to part with their money.
Yeah, I thought it was a good TV match. I have to be honest in saying that I was kind of tired for it by this point, and it was maybe a little bit more difficult to focus on it because it felt so separated from the main story of the month and of this particular show, which is everything headed towards Double or Nothing. This really was just kind of put out there as like, hey, a good TV match. You'll get some, blending into the main the Double or Nothing match later on, but that was kind of it.
And then Moxley just tells the Bucks to smile, take all the photos you can, FaceTime your family while they still recognize you, because you and your weak ass friends are going to get plastered on Las Vegas Boulevard, which he means violently. I don't think this would be the group to get plastered, the Elite, on Las Vegas Boulevard. He promises the wildest and most violent match in the history of AEW. And if you're squeamish, buckle up.
Well, what is currently the most violent match?
Oh boy. Moxley and Hangman was pretty damn violent. Omega and Moxley was pretty violent.
I'm thinking one of the women's matches.
Yeah. They've had some
like Rosa versus Baker. Was that like a pretty bloody one? I'm trying to think. I mean, have you seen those stills from that video game?
Yeah, it's a special paint. It's a painting match.
It's a very special type of blood.
Yeah, I mean, they got their teen rating, so I guess it satisfied the rating system.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty high bar when you're promising the most violent match, and I think that Jon Moxley has every intent to deliver on this promise on Sunday.
Can they beat Storm versus Hayter though with the live cannibalism?
We don't know what's in Moxley's head. I mean that.
How do you beat cannibalism?
I don't know. You rip a jaw out and floss your teeth. I don't know. I don't know what he has planned for this, but I'm sure they're going to have some pretty insane ideas for this. I mean, this is either this headlines the show or this is going to be a hell of a match to have to follow. I mean, this does feel like the main event going into Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But I don't think it'll close the show. I think Tony will stick to his guns and put the 4 on. I mean, I think it very much even like the idea of like the 4 of them being able to say we main evented and we've somehow followed Anarchy in the Arena is already a feather in the cap of those 4. I could see this maybe being, I could see them putting this in the semi-main. You know, I think they're that bold to and that confident in the 4 pillars to deliver. So, yeah.
And then the announcement from Tony Khan that was taped in the back or done live. But anyway, it was a backstage announcement from Tony Khan stating that the first edition of Collision will in fact take place from the United Center in Chicago. And you heard the cheers when Chicago was announced. You could make out a CM Punk chant as this began, but no announcement of CM Punk, that they are keeping that close to the vest, I guess. But this all but is your wink and a nod. And I would be very surprised if we go into June 17th without that announced. They have a lot of incentive to get his name out there. And maybe that is an added expectation for the pay-per-view, that they have a reveal of CM Punk coming back.
Well, given the idea reportedly last week was that he was going to be announced as part of the upfronts and that he was going to be a part of this entire promotion, especially when you have these Collision shows that aren't doing so well and are probably going to be in need of that extra boost with CM Punk attached to all the shows. What do you think was the thinking of not announcing Punk tonight?
What is did they put the on sale date on the graphic for the
I think they said Friday.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
I would think that they are going into Friday with the idea of what is the first day going to be? Do enough people already expect Punk just by announcing Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got and if it's below expectations, you can throw his name out on the Sunday. I mean, they do have that option of seeing like what maybe they're going to sell a ton of tickets on Friday because everyone is still going to believe, like, why would they run Chicago without Punk? It's not like the Wintrust Arena, which granted is Dynamite and Rampage 4 days later. Not like that one is doing gangbusters during this whole time either.
Yeah.
But that's another one to watch as well. If people, because that's not even a guarantee he would be on that show, though you would think, both days in Chicago, you would want him.
At this point, if you've kind of missed the value of like having him being announced as part of the upfronts, like Damage, arguably has already been done. Well, then why not wait until the pay-per-view so that you can generate more buzz coming? Like you have a great pay-per-view topper, a pay-per-view closer that you could, get all those headlines from. Maybe there's a thinking that like, hey, we don't necessarily want the Punk news to dominate interest going into Double or Nothing. I mean, they could have, of course, had Tony Khan promote an announcement at Double or Nothing. Huge announcement about who's going to appear on the first edition of Collision happening at Double or Nothing. But I think at this point, like, if you pretty much know that, like, AEW probably wouldn't be booking the United Center unless that they were confirmed. And let's be honest, like, the media is kind of already doing the job of announcing Punk for them anyway.
And Thursday, you will get at least a bit of an indication if some of these Collision dates move tickets, because you are now naturally going to, if you're assuming Punk for Chicago, then you're assuming him for Toronto, you're assuming him for Hamilton, you're assuming him for all the Collisions. And if a bunch of tickets move on Thursday, that's probably a really good sign for Friday at the United Center.
Although it's still not a guarantee. Like, I know Punk is supposed to be sort of like the poster child of this brand, but is it a guarantee that he's going to be on every single show? We also know, like, at least rumors are that these rosters aren't going to be subject to like a hard brand split, and sometimes you might still see Punk on a Dynamite. It's not necessarily a guarantee he'll be on every Collision. There's
still a lot of questions that will be centered around CM Punk as well between now and I think in perpetuity people are going to have those questions about this whole return and this run. But we'll be to me at some point you let the name out. I don't see them going into June 17th unless they just sell out the United Center in a matter of days, and then maybe they believe, we didn't have to throw that card out.
There are certainly a lot of questions regarding Punk, a lot of questions regarding Collision. Among them, I think chiefly for Canadians, is where can you watch Collision?
Well, I think, Wai, that it is going to be the question that I am asked more than you could imagine. That and what does VPN stand for? What is a virtual private network, Wai?
if you are one of those people who might be living in the country that I live in or another country and you don't exactly know where you might be able to watch Collision, I think it would be a pretty safe bet that you'd be able to find it through some sort of online means. And how best to access some of those online means that might be geo-blocked in your country than with the use of a VPN. And how about the best VPN that's out there? The best VPN that man has made. NordVPN. Thank you to the sponsor of the show, NordVPN. A very big fan of this service. I use it all the time, including tonight to watch tonight's edition of AEW because I'm in Canada, yet I'm able to access AEW Plus on Fight. I get to watch all the shows live, commercial-free and uncensored. Every edition of Dynamite and Rampage in the back catalog is also available. So those of you may be upset that this thing isn't a part of a max deal, at least as yet, you can get archives of all Dynamites and all Rampages through AEW Plus. You can even pause and rewind, which is an invaluable skill for me. You can also use Nord, of course, to purchase subscriptions and even pay-per-views at a reduced price through places that might offer them cheaper. It's really not difficult to figure out, and it's already paid for the cost of my Nord subscription many times over. You can even book flights, rental cars, hotels from different places that may offer cheaper prices. All of this plus Nord's robust security features. Protect your internet browsing from ISPs, trackers, hackers, access geo-blocked content, and escape speed limits imposed by your internet provider. Sign up through nordvpn.com/postwrestling, where Post listeners can receive a discount on all plans, plus their current offer, 4 extra months on top of all 2-year subscriptions, or 3 extra months on top of all 1-year subs. That's about $3.17 a month for a 28-month plan. Nord also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it within a month, tell them you want your money back, and that is it. Again, nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Let them know that you found out about them through us. Our thanks again to Nord for their support of Post.
And thank you, Mr. Ting. We will now open it up. If you want to get in any super chats, you are welcome to do so. And we will go to your feedback on the forum, which a quick note, Ask Away, our monthly mailbag show, will be out on Thursday for all Post Wrestling Cafe members. You have a couple of hours. You can still get in your questions. Just submit them on the thread on the forum, and we will get to them on Thursday. So that is postwrestlingcafe.com or video.postwrestling.com to get Ask Away, as well as all of our bonus shows, including Friday night's Rewind to SmackDown, which will include a preview of Night of Champions. And I'm going to call the audible. We will do a Double or Nothing preview on Friday night. We've been going lengthy tonight. So double pay-per-view previews on Friday, along with a SmackDown review.
All right, let's go to our feedback here from forum.postwrestling.com, and we start things off here with Robbie from London, Ontario. I'll start things off, John. He says, fun Dynamite, but a quick note. Was that the most dated anti-impact promo of all time? Is Dax aware Dixie hasn't been in the boss in 6 or 7 years, and that it hasn't been TNA in 5 or 6? Let's go, Jarrett and Letho, LOL. Yeah.
I think that was kind of the charm of it. And no offense, I think Dixie Carter was going to get the desired reaction more than you better call up the king of the mountain, Ed Nordholm, for job security. I don't know how much Las Vegas would have necessarily reacted to that. Like Dixie Carter is so synonymous with, and so is TNA as much as Impact. I think that was part of it, is like,
especially the Jarrett connection and the Lethal connection, you know.
Yes.
And I would also say, like, if you're gonna make fun of that particular company, like that era kind of still has that stench, whereas I think Impact
the current one is not going to get a negative reaction.
It's a company they work with, you know. So yeah, I don't think you're.
I mean, granted, all those promos were Tony Khan belittling them, but nonetheless, right. Yeah, you're very much right. It does not have the same negative connotation. Jordan from the Bronx, when Adam Cole said that he knew a wrestler from Las Vegas, I thought he was talking about the Godfather. I mean, could have. Sabu is the furthest person from my mind to even be involved in an Adam Cole or Jericho program. Sometimes AEW does random and it works, but this was a shark jump moment for me. I didn't think it was like this overwhelming giant, like everyone went nuts for Sabu, but I did not see it as I'm more curious to see how they utilize him on the pay-per-view, and if it is something that works for the audience and they have something clever for him laid out.
I haven't really been kind of following online buzz so much, but like I don't really sense that this is like a groan-inducing sort of like return, you know. Like, he's not involved in a match, he's not involved in a program, he's really just going to be an enforcer in a hardcore match, which I think kind of like, you know, paves the path for him. He has like some connection to Chris Jericho. through ECW, I would assume. So
it was a little confusing in the sense that, you know, it was established he would be in the corner of Adam Cole. In the graphic, it's Jericho and Cole, and he's in the middle, and it's listed special enforcer.
Right.
Anyway, glad that they aired the Willow Nightingale clips. She's a star on the cusp of something special, and this package goes a long way in positioning her as a top player in the company. I'm glad that we finally seem to have gotten our answer regarding Punk. All of the drama has really soured me on a lot of individuals. It's unfortunate that this happened, but hopefully everyone can finally move forward and create great television. Who would your first challenger for the AEW title be after the pay-per-view? My prediction is an MJF win with Adam Cole making his challenge next. I think that's probably the prevailing thought most are expecting.
So what are we saying? Like, are we talking about TV? Are we talking about Forbidden Door? Are we talking about All In or All Out? You know, like what are we talking about?
You have a lot of shows. You need, you know, several challengers coming up. I don't know what involvement you have MJF necessarily involved with Forbidden Door. I would want him on that show in some capacity, and that would not be your next AEW title defense, at least against an Adam Cole or whoever your challenger is. You know, you might want him to do a match on Collision.
Yeah.
Like, it's a rare enough thing for him wrestling on television that would be something on like one of those first weeks to have him on. And then it's on to, I guess, like your All In opponent. Yeah,
a first real program. I think Adam Cole feels like a really good candidate right now. Thing is though, like, is MJF going to hold the belt? Would you want MJF to hold the belt throughout all these shows? Would you want him to hold it for All In and for All Out? A lot of people have been wanting to see Sting versus MJF. It's very possible. I think it would be very attractive, but I like it might be a bit of a long shot. So where does like an Adam Cole fit in? And more importantly, like you suggested, would a CM Punk fit in somewhere? And where would you slot all these things?
I would say like Punk going for the title the week after All In. I mean, if you're going to come back with a pay-per-view after All In, like Punk going for the title in Chicago is about as strong a main event as you could go with 7 days later.
And so would you have MJF defend at All In, or would you have the title not even at stake on that show?
No, I think you could do both. You pair him with someone that it's meaningful, whoever takes on Punk.
Let's do the Sting match. You know, let's say Sting. Okay, you retire, or you get the title, or you never challenge for the title again. Something.
Punk has the connection to both. You could do that. It's a believable enough story of Sting winning or MJF winning. Either way, you have a big main event for Chicago the week after. They do have quite a number of options.
Bill Goldberg.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Wardlow should be Bill Goldberg by this point. After destroying MJF last year, he is far from Bill Goldberg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe this ladder match rehabilitates him a little bit further. So you have that as well. Let's go to Kate from Montreal.
Kate says, very solid Dynamite, but I don't know if it did enough to move a lot of last-minute ticket sales. The wrestling was very good, but the atmosphere suffered a lot from one of the most disinterested audiences in Dynamite history. But they wish they could have brought last week's crowd with them. As someone who's become a big Aussie Open fan in the last year, I was thrilled to see them get the graphic, even though it's slightly dampened by the knowledge that we won't be getting the Forbidden Door match with FTR I so desperately wanted. I was also happy to see them highlight Willow's win, especially since the moment itself was dominated by the injury to Mercedes. Do you see any of the titles changing hands on Sunday? I think Tony and maybe Christian could win, but I could also see all the current champs retaining.
I'm going to say no on Wardlow. Tony Storm winning from Jamie Hayter. Yeah, I could see that potentially, unless you want Jamie Hayter as the champion going into All In, but her challenging as well, or in something else.
It's very possible. I guess I just don't know how it necessarily helps the story, other than, you know, maybe just sort of a like is the story ultimately going to be Baker versus Hayter, or is that like so far down the line at this point that we're not even going to get to it? You know, I see Hayter keeping it myself.
Yeah, because Hayter and Saraya would probably be your All In match.
Yeah.
Again, that's kind of a different dynamic that you have if Saraya is still a heel by then.
I don't see the TNT title changing hands with Wardlow versus Christian Cage. Can you see the tag team titles changing hands to Lethal and Jarrett from FTR?
No, I don't think so. Wouldn't be the worst idea, but I don't see that one happening.
don't really either. I actually, you know what? Like, I think Lethal and Jarrett are pretty hot right now, but FTR also are relatively new as champions. And what are you going to next with FTR beyond this?
Well, you were thinking Aussie Open, but that one might be on hold.
Right.
And
yeah,
I mean, it's probably probably going to be Goto and Yoshihashi at Forbidden Door.
Right. And maybe for that reason, FTR retains.
Or it could be Evil and Yujiro. I mean, let's not throw them out of the option.
Sorry, are they currently champions?
They're wrestling at Dominion for the vacant titles.
And do we know they would do a champion versus champion match?
No, it's just if you were going to be like everything pointed in the direction of Aussie Open as champions facing FTR as champions. And if you're taking out one team, it would make sense you're putting in the new tag champions to do that showdown at Dominion. It's not like they built up any other tag teams on the New Japan side for FTR.
I think it's very possible you don't get any title changes on this particular show.
All right. We will go through the whole card on Friday. So tune in, Rewind to SmackDown. We will be going live at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Is that the plan on Friday?
Yes, it is.
It's going to be a lengthy show on Friday. So we will go over Rampage results at the end. And you're welcome still to leave feedback to Rampage if you would like on Friday night. So 10 p.m. Eastern, we'll have a review of SmackDown and previews of Night of Champions and Double or Nothing. So check out all of that. Also want to let people know about the latest edition of the Wellness Policy. And Wai, what were you guys chatting about this month?
We had a chance to speak to Chris Duke, who is a author of a children's book called Lucy's Blue Day. And we had a chance to talk to him about children's mental health, of which this book addresses, and just talking a little bit about his own inspiration for the book. He did it because of his daughter, and it was a really interesting chat. Chris also has quite the connection to professional wrestling, trained to become to have one match in professional wrestling, and ended up talking to us about his incredible weight loss journey that also involved a number of television appearances as well. So really fascinating chat, and you can check that out right now for free at postwrestlingcafe.com or youtube.com/postwrestling.
Thursday, we've got the Ask Away mailbag show for Cafe members. And Friday, I will be live with Brandon Thurston at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be joined by Kareem Zidane of A Bloody Elbow and his own Substack, Sports Politica. He is going to be chatting about the WWE's relationship in Saudi Arabia as we go into Night of Champions, and now over 5 years into their deal with the government of Saudi Arabia. Brandon and I will also react to Tony Khan's media call that he is holding on Thursday afternoon. So we will be covering that call, and we will talk about it on Friday with Brandon and myself. So look out for all of those shows. Postwrestling.com is where you can go to follow all of the latest news. And that is it for us. Goodbye.